is Emily. Welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited to be here with you today in June 2021 for Pride Month here. And in today's video, I thought that it would be helpful to do a video about pronouns. I know pronouns have been kind of a hot topic recently. We've had a lot of celebrities coming out as transgender and non-binary recently. Pronouns have really been in the media, been getting a lot of discussion, and I think people have a lot of questions. So I thought that it could be a helpful video for my Pride Month 2021 video series. So today we are going to be talking about pronouns. So I think that it's important when we talk about pronouns to start by just talking about what pronouns are. Obviously today's discussion of pronouns will refer specifically to the English language. That is the only language I speak fluently. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So this is a very English-specific conversation and very specific for people who natively speak English and regularly use English to talk about themselves, refer to themselves. So just sort of keep that in mind. This is definitely an English-speaking video, and people who natively speak other languages might have different perspectives or different outlooks on this type of situation. But this is sort of for English speakers. So let's start by talking about what a pronoun is. A pronoun is essentially just a word that we use to replace a noun in a sentence, whether it's to avoid saying the noun again or to avoid saying the noun in the first place. We use a pronoun to replace a noun. And there are different types of pronouns. So there are pronouns that go in the subject of a sentence, so that are talking, we use those pronouns to replace nouns in the subject of the sentence. So maybe instead of saying someone's name, you would use a pronoun instead. There are also pronouns that go in the object of the sentence, and we use those to replace nouns that are the direct or indirect object in that clause. So there's subject pronouns, object pronouns. There's also possessive pronouns that replace possessive nouns, and there's reflexive pronouns that sort of refer back to the subject noun of the sentence, or maybe are more intensive pronouns and they emphasize the noun. So let's talk about what these different categories of pronouns are. So when we think about subject pronouns, remember this is a pronoun that replaces the noun in the subject clause of the sentence. So there are first person pronouns like I or we. I is singular, we is plural. Instead of saying, if I'm talking about what I did today, I'm like, oh, Emily recorded some videos and Emily went to the store, and that's a little weird, right? We don't talk like that. We say, oh yeah, I recorded some videos today, I went to Walmart, I did this. We'd use that first person pronoun to refer to ourselves instead, because it could be a little weird otherwise. There's also second person pronouns. That's going to be you. You can be both singular or plural. And then there's third person pronouns, and this is where our gendered pronouns start to come in. So we've got he, she, they, and then the pronoun it. So he, she, and they would be used to refer to people. It is a pronoun we use to refer to objects, so we won't really be focusing on that today. It is a gender neutral pronoun, but it is for objects, not for people. So we would use he, she, or they to refer to people. And we would put any of these pronouns in the subject of the sentence. So he went to the store. She got her hair cut today. Stuff like that. So now when we're talking about object pronouns, remember these are pronouns that replace a noun that's the direct or indirect object in a clause. So this could be, again, first person. So things like me, which would be singular, or us, which would be plural. Oh, I'm so happy you did that for me. Instead of, saying, oh, I'm so happy you did that for Emily. That'd be a little weird, right? We'd use the word me, or if it's plural, we use the word us. There's second person, again, is you. And then third person pronouns would be him, her, it, or them. So again, it is gender neutral, but it's for objects, for things. Him, her, and them are for people. And these go in the object part of the sentence. So it would be things like, oh yeah, I picked up the dry cleaning for him today. And if I wanted to say that instead of, oh yeah, I picked up the dry cleaning for Billy today, I could use a pronoun instead. Then there's possessive pronouns, which again replace possessive nouns. So this is going to be things like in the first person, like mine or ours. Oh yeah, those keys are mine. Or in the second person, yours. That hat is yours. Or in the third person, his, hers, or theirs. oh yeah, that cup is his. He left it here, when he went home from work last night. So again, these just replace a possessive noun. So instead of saying, oh, that cup is Billy's, you can say that cup is his. Then we've got the reflexive nouns that refer back to the subject noun of the sentence, or intensive pronouns, which emphasize the noun in the sentence. And these are, in the first person, things like myself or ourselves. In the second person, things like yourself or yourselves. And then in the third person, himself, herself, themselves, and itself. So you'll notice, like I said, that English has gendered pronouns only for these third person type pronouns. And these are the pronouns that we use mostly to refer to other people or to refer to things. So, he, him, his is typically used for men or for males. She, her, hers is typically used for women or females. They, them, theirs is sort of a gender neutral option to refer to people. And like I said, the gender neutral pronoun it typically refers back to things or objects. We don't really use that for people or for sentient beings, right? You wouldn't even use that for animals, right? If you were talking about someone's pet, someone was like, oh yeah, where's the dog? You wouldn't be like, it's over there. You'd be like, oh, he's over there, she's over there. So really any kind of living thing, we don't really use the word it for. So it's important to remember that when we're talking about pronouns. If that's not a pronoun we really use for people. All right, now that the grammar lesson is over, we can sort of switch gears a little bit and start talking about this idea that we can't know someone's pronouns just by looking at that person. But luckily it's really easy to ask someone what their pronouns are or to talk to someone about what their pronouns are. It's really simple to, just ask, like, hey, what pronouns do you use? Or to introduce yourself with your pronouns. Oh, hi, I'm Emily, I use she, her pronouns. And sort of, that can kind of prompt the other person to respond like, oh yeah, I'm Billy, I use he, him pronouns. Oh yeah, I'm Billy, I use they, them pronouns. To sort of just respond that way. And it kind of normalizes the experience for people that maybe don't use pronouns that are consistent with their gender presentation or the pronouns people would expect them to use, essentially. Kind of normalizes the experience of them having to tell people what their pronouns are. So, some people may use, she, her pronouns, he, him pronouns, but, some non-binary or gender non-conforming folks might use they, them pronouns as sort of an ungendered pronoun option, right? We talked about before that that's sort of the gender neutral option for people, right? So, just like you would typically use, she or her, you would use they instead. So instead of saying she went to the store, you just say they went to the store. Super easy, right? For sort of that object pronoun, remember, it's going to be them. So instead of saying, oh yeah, I did that for him, I did that for her, you just say, I did that for them, right? And then, if you would typically for, more like possessive type words, when you would typically use his or hers, you just say theirs. It's super, super simple, right? It kind of seems a little maybe confusing to people, I think, at first, but when you think about sort of the breakdown of it, right? You're just replacing the other pronouns that maybe you're used to using with, they, them, and theirs. I think it's also important to remember that some people are comfortable with more than one set of pronouns, so some people might be like, oh yeah, I use she, her, or they, them. So you can kind of mix it up with those people, right? Sometimes you can be like, oh yeah, she did this, and sometimes you can be like, oh yeah, I've got to pick them up today. You can kind of mix it up a little bit, and make sure you're using both sets of pronouns because you've got options, right? Why not take advantage of them? I think also it's important to remember that if you make a mistake when using someone's pronouns, whether it's because they are, maybe new pronouns the person is using and you're not quite used to it yet, or, whatever the reason is, if you do make a mistake, it's okay. It's not a big deal. The person expects it. We're all human, right? We all make mistakes. So if you do make a mistake when using someone's pronouns, just sort of be like, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I meant them, and then move on. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. That can make it kind of uncomfortable for the person, right? If, you're like, oh yeah, she was like blah, 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 and you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me. I know it's they. I can't believe it. Oh my God. You don't have to do that. It's okay. Just be like, oh shoot, I'm sorry. I mean, they, blah, 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 and just keep going. Sort of treat it like you would if you sort of misspoke any other time, right? If you sort of used an incorrect word, you would just fix it and move on. If you sort of change the word you wanted to use halfway through the sentence, you'd fix it and move on. You wouldn't make a big deal out of it, and this really isn't any different. So sort of one of the last things, I guess, that I want to talk about, or the last type of pronouns that I want to talk about, are sort of this idea of neo-pronouns. So neo is a prefix that means new. So neo-pronouns are new pronouns. And they're used in the exact same way that we use sort of the old school pronouns that we had the grammar lesson on, right? You just use them to replace a noun in a sentence, but they are sort of new words that we're using as pronouns, or some people prefer to use as pronouns. So, they still have subject, object, possessive, reflexive sort of variations, right? And they're used in the exact same way as other pronouns in these categories. So some examples of these pronouns might be, Z here. So the subject pronoun would be, Z. So Z did this, blah, blah, blah. The object version of this pronoun would be here. So, oh yeah, I did that for here. Instead of I did that for them, I did that for him. The possessive is here's, and the reflexive is yourself. There's also Z, zir pronouns. So Z went to the store today. I picked zir up from the store today. That zir's cup over there. Again, you're using them in the same way you use all of the other pronouns you're used to using. It's just some new words. And I'm going to talk about just Z here and Z, zir pronouns, but there are all sorts of neo-pronouns out there. And they're not any less real or any less valid than other pronouns. I think, sometimes they're like, people are like, that's a made-up word, But I mean, all words are made-up words. And, I think it's actually kind of, in my opinion, I think it's kind of cool to see language actually changing, like, in front of us right now, right, as we live and breathe. Because language is an ever-changing entity. It's not a stagnant thing. The English we're speaking today is not the same as the English they were speaking in the 1500s or the 1100s, right? Have you ever had to pick up Beowulf and read that? That's not how we talk, right? It's hard to believe that's even the same language. Language is always changing. It's always shifting. There's always new words being added. So I think, in my opinion, I think it's really cool to sort of see that happening today and sort of see language developing and changing, and like to get to be a part of that, which we're always a part of, but this is, I think, a very obvious example of it. So, try to think about it that way. If you feel a little confused or overwhelmed by these new words that people are using. And I think, whether someone is changing their pronouns to better reflect their identity, or you meet someone with pronouns that are new or unfamiliar, just remember that practice makes perfect, right? So it can be helpful to make sure that you're, using these pronouns in your head when you think about that person, that you are using the pronouns when you talk about that person and they're not around. So maybe when you're talking to your friends, your parents, whatever, make sure that you are using the correct pronouns to refer to them with others and in your head, whether that person is around or not. Number one, is respectful. You wouldn't want someone to be behind your back calling you the wrong pronouns, right? Like, I don't really think I'd like it if people were behind my back calling me he and him all the time. Like, that would be a little strange for me, right? You wouldn't want to find that out. It would probably be a little weird, a little hurtful, uncomfortable, disrespectful. You'd probably feel a lot of ways. So just sort of, think about that when you are talking about someone, and make sure you're using the right pronouns, the right names. And also it helps you practice so that when you're actually, using the pronouns in front of the person, you'll get it right and you won't have to avoid uncomfortable situations like we talked about earlier. I think in closing this video, I want to talk about the idea of making sure, you are respecting the person's, wishes with regards to when and where you use their pronouns. So, I know I just said to make sure you're using their pronouns, all the time, even if they're not there and with everybody. But if someone tells you that, they aren't out to certain people yet, or they aren't out at all yet, maybe they're just coming out to you only for the first time, I think it's important to remember that and to make sure you're respecting their wishes to maybe not use particular pronouns and names in certain situations. You don't want to out someone before they're ready or put them in an unsafe situation. Maybe it's not safe for them to be out to someone. And if you start using their preferred name, their preferred pronouns, or their chosen name, chosen pronouns in front of, these unsafe individuals, you could be putting your friend or your loved one in an unsafe situation. And maybe it's not necessarily unsafe, it's just uncomfortable, or they're just not ready to be out in those situations yet. And that's fine and totally valid. And so if someone tells you, hey, don't use my pronouns with so-and-so, or I'm only using them in these situations, or only you and our other friend, know about this, just so you know. Make sure you remember that and you respect that, and you disregard my previous advice to be using their chosen name, chosen pronouns in all situations. Make sure you're respecting what your loved one, your friend tells you. So, was that a helpful video? Did we learn about pronouns today? Did we like the English lesson? Do we have a better understanding of what pronouns are? Let me know down below, and let me know what pronouns you use. I use she, her, hers pronouns. What pronouns do you use? Put them down below. Let me know if this video was helpful, or if you have any questions. Hopefully, myself or some of my awesome subscribers can help you out. But I hope this was a helpful video for you, and you did, learn something about pronouns. You learned something about, how to use the right pronouns, how to ask about pronouns. But if you have any questions, let us know. And also be sure to check out the description box. I'll make sure I link all of the references that I used to write this so that you can check those out if you want more information. I'll also leave a resource from Glisten about pronouns. It's sort of a resource guide that I think is pretty helpful. I'll also have linked, all of my typical suicide and crisis hotlines, and also some general information about the LGBTQIA+ community if you're interested in doing any research or, learning more. But I hope this video was helpful, and if this is your first time stumbling on my channel, it was, great to be here with you. Thank you for watching this video. If you were watching this video because someone, just came out to you and they're using new pronouns, thank you for watching. Your person will really appreciate that, and they'll appreciate the investment you're making in supporting them and in loving them and in your relationship with them. So thank you. I'm proud of you. Very proud of you. Thanks for doing that. If you are interested in learning more about the LGBTQIA+ community, I do have other videos that might be helpful to you. Last year for Pride Month, I put out a video every day on a different LGBTQIA+ identity, including different gender identities as well. So, check out my channel. Maybe I've got a video that might be helpful for you and help, continuing your efforts to support your loved one. With that being said, I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.